Welcome to my world, my war, the war I gotta survive every day. This is my war. You're all welcome.
What's going on, my darling? How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for doing this.
It's a pleasure.
This means so much to me, and probably means a lot to you for you even coming here to do it. So let's get into it. First question is, what's your name and how old are you?
I'm Lilly and I'm 23 years old.
23? Have we swapped ages? My next question is, what was you diagnosed with? We're getting serious now. What was you diagnosed with? How many times have you been sectioned and for how long?
Okay, so initially when I was about 16, I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. And then later on, when I was 17, I was diagnosed with a psychotic episode, so psychosis. Sorry, was there not?
How did you feel about that, actually? Before I even get into other questions, I've been asking everyone, how did you feel when you got those? What diagnosis impacted you the most? Made you think, ooh, the depression or
the depression was kind of, I think depression is quite a comfortable one. It's not comfortable, it's not pleasant, obviously, but it was obvious. I was really low, I was really down. I was gradually declining. From around 11 or 12, I started to just feel, off. I started to not feel comfortable in my body. I started to feel very self-conscious. And then when I got to secondary school, I just started to feel really low, but like lower and lower and lower. And then I felt like I didn't really want to be here. I was just self-harming. I was just struggling to find the reason to live. So that was kind of obvious and obvious and explainable, and it was quite obvious to see, And I think we are comfortable with emotions like sadness and maybe anxiety, like they're quite normal human emotions, but then I think the psychosis is something different. Everyone's like, whoa, you're crazy. Like that's something that's a lot more taboo. I mean, all mental health is taboo, but the psychosis one was like probably the one I was a bit more like, oh, okay, this is big.
I know exactly what you mean. How many times was you sectioned and for how long? And how did you get sectioned? Like, what happened? You kind of explained a little bit into it when you said the low periods, but like, if you want to go into more depth.
Yeah, I'm happy to go in. I'm an open book about this stuff.
Love it.
So, so the depression.
So how long was you sectioned for?
So I was sectioned for the first time around a month, and I think it's a bit, I guess, different because I basically sectioned myself. Like You're the second person to say that we had. I didn't know you could do that. Yeah,
no
so
idea.
I almost had to beg to be put into hospital because it was when I was 16, following a very serious suicide attempt. I'd had many different attempts, but this one in particular ended up with me like being in hospital, having to have surgery, having to be like on lots of machines. It was like an overdose and a very severe cut, and where I actually damaged like my ligaments. So that was like a big one. Like I actually almost died. And then after that, I was on medication this whole time. I was being closely watched, and people were like, "Oh, you're back to normal." I wasn't really back to normal at all, and I guess I was like, I didn't feel non-suicidal, and I didn't want to. I was like, I didn't really want to put my family through that. I was just in a place of like, therapy wasn't really working, medication wasn't working, and I was like, what is going to make this better? And I literally I was under CAMS at that point, and that, I feel like they're very overstretched and kind of burdened with a lot of different crises, but I had to say, look, you either put me in hospital or I'm gonna try and kill myself again, and I will be successful. And I literally had to put it like that to get the help that I needed. So and then like once you come back from a visit, you have to be like scanned and like searched. So it was kind of, what's the word? Very humbling, I'd say, to be in that position.
Sure.
But I think it was. I don't believe in coincidences, and it's obviously what I needed at the time. But I think it was there was a glimpse of me wanting to improve my situation. Although that's why they were very hesitant to put me in there, because not everyone that goes into a psych ward improves. It's very, very easy to go into these places and end up even worse than when you went in, because you're constantly surrounded by people who are in the same, if not worse, positions than you. And you can kind of like obviously feed off of each other. You can encourage each other's kind of, you know,
it can affect you in a negative way.
It can affect you.
And that's why this is so important to me, because I want to show people cases of people that have been and like have come out the other side and completely turned the situation around. Another question I wanted to ask you was, what was the scariest moment during the sectioning? Do you remember?
So I didn't touch on, so the second time that I was sectioned, well, I wasn't technically sectioned, so I was in Cambodia. I went traveling. I dropped out of school in the middle of year 12. I was 17, literally like 2 weeks after my 17th birthday. I went by myself to Cambodia. I wasn't in the most, I wasn't in the most, like, the best state. I was obviously back in school. I'd done my GCSEs or whatever. I wasn't suicidal, but I wasn't really living. I was
Why
just...
Cambodia? Is that where you're from? Or
No, I'm half Ecuadorian and half English. So it's a random...
Cambodia?
I wanted to go to somewhere that I'd never been, that I didn't know anyone there. I'd never been... I've traveled quite a bit, but I had never been to Cambodia, never been to Asia. And basically I was doing my A-levels and stuff, and I was just like, I'm not living at the moment, I'm surviving. So I kind of gave my mum an ultimatum, like, I need to leave school and I need to travel. Like, this isn't, like, I'm either going to go back down that path. So I ended up going to Cambodia, volunteering at a school. And this was actually a great thing for me, because for the first time, like, I was outside of my environment that had kind of helped to get me to that point of like deep depression and anxiety, lots of trauma, like in childhood, lots of different forms of abuse, different forms of, you know, like hard situations. And I was outside of that environment, and I was finally like seeing something bigger than myself. I was volunteering, I was giving back, I was seeing people with a lot less than me, a lot happier than me, and it just, I don't know, it stripped everything away, and it just made me realize like I've got so much to be grateful for. And for the first time, like, I actually felt something. You know, when you're on medication, I think a lot of people would experience this. You're not maybe as suicidal or as manic or as frantic as you were, but then you don't go up either. You're flat, you're like a zombie, like you're not feeling. So I was very, very numb, and I was very, very reckless, and that made me want to, you know, search for things to feel. But when I got to Cambodia and I was in the sun, I was feeling again. I was connecting with people, all different ages, all volunteering, looking after children. It was beautiful, but it came with its own set of struggles. And then I ended up, it was a whole thing. Like, I ended up, you know, I wasn't in the most stable place, and I wasn't making the best decisions. And then I ended up back, and I went back to Cambodia, and I actually had the start of the psychosis, which was, for me, I don't actually see it as a psychosis. I see it as a spiritual awakening that happened like very, very, very quickly in a short amount of time. So I started to like meditate. I started to work with this man at this yoga center, and I started to open up to like meditation. So obviously for the first time I was more delving into like spirituality. I'd grown up Christian, but I was delving more into like mindfulness, and I took myself off of my medication, I took myself off medication, but overnight. I took myself, at the time I was smoking, I was also like drinking, smoking, I was on different pills like Valium, Xanax, like just not prescribed, just because you can buy them over the counter there. And I quit it all overnight. I was like, I don't need this. And then that triggered, obviously, that paired along with all my like spiritual knowledge and studies and my meditation, it all, and then the sudden decline of my like medication.
You're the only person that's actually said something that was so similar to my first breakdown, apart from the pills and stuff. But just the mixing the spiritual awakening with the psychosis.
Is it different?
It's not a good mix.
Yeah, but like maybe I feel like
it's not a good mix if you don't have someone to usher you through it.
Yeah, here's the thing, like I feel like
was you alone during that whole period? Was you just the one trying to figure it out? Or
I was
it don't seem like you had a mentor during that period.
So I had this man at this Raja Yoga Center that I went to, so he was a bit of a mentor, but at the same time, I didn't have like a community. I was there by myself. I was like, I had a boyfriend at the time there, but you know, I didn't have like a group of friends or like a community space. I was just going through this alone in my head, and I would tell a few people about it, but no one really understood what was happening for me, and everything was starting to make sense for me. Like a lot of things which had bothered me before, like especially around like religion and stuff, was all kind of clearing away, and it was a positive experience, but it was just very quick and very intense, and I didn't have that grounding, and I didn't have that support and that knowledge of also like spiritual protection or spiritual hygiene or practices, you know, to ground that expansion. So I said all that to say that ended up with me. It ended up escalating over like a course of a few weeks to the point where like I was doing a lot of like weird things and like making like weird noises. I was like not contacting my family back in England, so people were worried. And then my ex at the time, he called my mum, was like, this is going on. And then I had a big, I guess if you want to call it a breakdown, I was like walking around. I think I was like walking around naked. I was like, everything makes sense.
You can share whatever you need to share.
I was like,
nothing I haven't heard before.
I'm not like ashamed of it. Like in my head, I was going through my whole journey, and I was like, I've broken this curse and this and that. Like everything was clicking for me. I wasn't eating as well. Like I felt very, very high. Like I wasn't. For the first time, I wasn't on anything, but I felt so high. Like I wasn't sleeping much, I wasn't eating, I was getting a lot of light bulb moments. I know exactly. You know, you probably relate. So that resulted in, I was staying in an Airbnb at the time, and they were like, what's going on? And my boyfriend at the time took me, he's like, come on, we're gonna go to a cafe or something. And then I was like, it's done. It all makes sense. And then he took me to a local hospital, like this little clinic that I'd been to before, like a kind of like, not even a proper like big hospital, like just down this like little road in Cambodia, this clinic. And they were like testing me, and they were like, oh, your blood sugar's really low, like we need to put a drip. And I was like laughing at them. I was like, ha 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 ha, no, I'm good, everything makes sense. And they were like, please sit still, like, let us do this drip, because like I hadn't been eating or like drinking or anything. And they were like, for almost a week, and they were like, please. And I was just doing madness, and then they literally sedated me, and I ended up sedated for about 3 days. I woke up in a different bed in this like little dark room with a drip. Actually, like,
what was that like? Was that scary?
That was probably like the freakiest bit of it. Like, and I actually was like bleeding, as the medication was so strong that they were giving me. It literally made me bleed like down below. Like I woke up in a nappy, in like different clothes. Like that was a bit like messed up. And then I think I woke up at that point, went back to sleep. It was like 3 days I was just conked out, like. And then I woke up, and my boyfriend at the time had picked my mum up from the airport. She'd flown from England, and she came in, and I was like, Mum, like, and then I ended up coming back to England, obviously, with my mum, and going to the, like, contacting like a crisis team here, and I had actually been put on like a cocktail of drugs, like, and different antipsychotics, 5 different drugs that aren't even like legal here for adults anymore.
Was you like zombie?
No, I was still in it. I was still quite in it, but it definitely, when I look at the pictures, I was like wiped out. I had bags. I was bleeding for like 2 or 3 weeks. I also had like colostrum, like milk coming out of my boobs. Like that was the effect of these strong medications that they put me on. So that was a bit messed up. And I'd say, to be very honest with you, I wasn't actually scared through that process. It was more when I came back here and I was around like friends and family, and they were scared, and everyone was looking at me. I started to feel a bit like, oh, what's wrong with me? I'm like, you know, I'm so crazy. That was the start of the fear. But that bit before, I was the most fearless I've ever been. You know, like I was confident, I was fearless. Maybe it was a bit imbalanced, but it was more other people's fear. And then even with the depression, I don't think I wasn't scared of anything. Mostly I was just scared of myself and like the power of my mind and how it was affecting me and affecting and hurting those around me, I guess. So, yeah.
Did sectioning help you get better? And what did help you get better? What was it? What got you like this again? Like,
Again, I don't think I was this person before. I think it wasn't about getting back to normal because the normal wasn't working.
Yeah.
And I also feel like I have maybe quite a different perspective to a lot of people. I don't think I was ill. I don't think there was anything inherently wrong with me. I think I was a human being having an experience, like a very normal reaction to a lot of the traumas that I went to that were deeply buried. I don't necessarily believe in mental health. I believe we are holistic beings. I believe we have our physical health, we've got our mind, we've got our body, but we've also got our soul, we've got the spiritual, and we deal with just the physical in this society. And I don't think that even touches the surface.
And the spiritual is like shunned upon. Like,
yeah.
No one wants to touch it.
No one wants to go there. So
the most important part.
Because everything is spiritual before it is physical, right? So things happen in the spiritual realm before they trickle down into the physical. It happens there first, and then it gets bigger and bigger. The physical realm is the last, it's the most densest. So if something is manifesting and appearing in the physical, whether that's through an illness, physically or mentally, then it's been a long time coming, So
sure.
I'd say like looking back, I wasn't ill. Like I feel like depression is just suppression. It's a suppression of pain, of sadness, and it's very normal for that to come out at some point in your life.
Especially in the society we live in, that's bound to happen.
And we all go through different things, right? We all go through different traumas from the moment like we're born or even before. And as we're growing up, we go through things which are traumatic, right? Where we create certain shadows, where we learn that certain parts of ourselves are not acceptable, or maybe we had experiences which made us not feel safe, or we were abused or exploited. And I think it's natural for those emotions to one day come up, to one day catch up with you. Like they don't go anywhere. Energy isn't just created or destroyed, it's just transferred. So I feel like I was having a very normal reaction to a lot of the things that I went through as a child. I was carrying a lot of maybe pain and trauma inside me, and it came out first as, depression and anxiety and just this overwhelming feeling of not wanting to be here, which is probably what I would have felt, going at the beginning of when those certain things started to happen. And then in terms of
what did help you get back?
What did help me? I feel like.
Was it knowledge? Was it more clarity?
You know what? I think it was.
Time.
Time is a great healer. I also feel like it was my journey into like self-love and acceptance. I'd say there was a mixture of things that helped. So definitely movement, like moving the body, like yoga. For me, it was yoga, dancing, but that could be different for everyone. It was definitely having a spiritual practice for me that grounded me every day. So like meditation, praying, like making prayer a lifestyle. And that prayer looks different for everyone. That could be, physically praying, or just maybe sitting in nature, talking to a version of yourself. Like it's different for everyone. For me also, I feel like it was definitely spending time in nature. Also watching what I consumed, and that is like through what I eat, through.
It seems like you took back control. You took a lot of control.
I feel like I'm really grateful for my mental health journey, because at a young age it taught me that no one's coming to save me. And that was a very overwhelming feeling to have, like going to all this therapy, having this medication, talking to all these doctors, having your family like completely worried and like trying to help you, but no one could save me. And that was the best and most, painful, but like most liberating thing I could learn, because from a young age I learned, okay,
I gotta figure this out.
No one's coming to save me. Like, and even if you believe in God only helps those who help themselves. So I feel like no one was gonna come out the sky and like rescue me from these thoughts or from So I was like, okay, I've actually got to do stuff about this. So creativity was big. So like art therapy I found was the most useful of the therapies. I started to like write and draw and paint what I was feeling and what I wanted to also feel in the future, what I wanted to change, and definitely Herbs for me were really helpful. Like I eventually was like off medication, and I started to work with herbs to help with like my nervous system, making teas, making, you know, tinctures, things like that. My connection to God, source, and that's different for everyone. And I think also then another one is like community. Like community is a really big one, because when we feel held and when we feel seen and when we feel like we belong and that we're validated in our experience, like that heals so much. I think
that's what healed me more than anything I ever done.
Because you're going through it all alone and you're thinking, this is just me, I'm crazy, blah blah blah. And I think after the psychotic episode or my spiritual awakening, I had a lot of shame which I think came from other people. Outside. It was the looks, it was oh, are you okay now? Like it was like family and friends, it was church, like people were looking at me like, oh gosh, she's got a few screws loose. And that made me feel very isolated and ashamed. And I was then scared of myself and scared of what I'd opened up. Even though deep down I knew what I'd experienced was true, but I kind of for a bit lost it again until, you know, I took time away from like religion and certain people, and I started to connect just bit by bit with different people on my path, like friends here and there. And, you know, would share a bit, and they're like, you're not crazy, like that was real what you went through. And I was like, really? Like, oh, I don't usually tell people this. And they're like, no, that was real, that was valid, that was, you know. So gradually that shame started to dissipate, and then I was just like, that was all real. And like, wait a sec, let me just reclaim and remember everything that I discovered in that time, but pair that with grounding, pair that with, you know,
practices I've learned now.
I learned. For me, it was like connecting to my ancestors. It was praying. It was yoga. It was connecting in community. It was ritual. You know, whether that's through prayer, through dancing. These things that I feel like we always used to do.
Look, you kind of went into that. No, I haven't gone. I'm just saying that system. You know that system, That system was, how did you overcome not being ashamed and willing to speak about it? Do you want to answer that? Do you want to answer? I'll give you a chance to answer it.
Okay.
You kind of did, but...
I think...
And then the last question is, do you have any words of hope for anyone going through it? So do you want to answer... All right, cool. You ready, Shreya? Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, how did you overcome not being ashamed and willing to speak about it? How did you become this open book?
I think I was quite open throughout, especially like the depression and the anxiety. I didn't really feel ashamed about that. The psychosis was a little bit more...
Definitely, because that's the one that's more like stigmatized.
Because people are like, you're crazy or whatever. But for me, it was sharing it with other people. It was meeting certain friends at certain points that, you know, created space for all of me, you know, for all my story. And, you know, I was, you know, I'm quite open with people, especially on like a one-to-one basis. So I would share, and they were like, wow, or they'd get stuff from it, or they'd be like, oh, that actually makes sense. And I was like, okay, maybe I actually wasn't crazy.
Because you never had said it out loud.
Yeah, you know, I'd said bits to people, but, you know, the people around me, like my family, didn't really understand the depth of what I was going through, or they did, or maybe through like a religious lens, so it was a bit demonized in a way. But for me, it was releasing the shame was, I realized that what I'd actually been through was a spiritual experience, and it had been medicalized and labeled, and then that's on a medical level, and then through a spiritual level it'd been like demonized. And so I was like, no, scrap all of that. I had a spiritual awakening. It was very intense. Only I can understand what I went through, and I just started to share it with people. And I think you know, in the last couple of years, I've started to, or more than a couple of years, I've started my own business of like holistic health, doing readings, talking to people on a very like vulnerable, intimate level. So I've realized, like, if I didn't go through everything I went through, I wouldn't be able to hold space in the way that I can. I wouldn't be able to, connect to people and see people and meet people where they're at. And then gradually, like, people started to, you know, you kind of attract what you are. So like people started to share their stories, and I was like, I've been through that, and I was like, oh, okay. everything happens for a reason. Nothing is happening to you, everything is happening for you. Like, there's a greater plan. Like, okay, if it was embarrassing for that time, if people didn't understand it, that's fine. I've got something to offer. Like, this is so much bigger than me, you know? So I started to share that and just really find my people, really, that understood it for what it was and encouraged me to be my true self. So that was beautiful.
Love it. Last question. Few words of hope for anybody that is still going through it.
Definitely. I'd say if you're going through this or something similar, please know that you are not alone, you are not crazy, there is nothing inherently wrong with you, there's nothing to be ashamed of, you are not broken, you are not delusional. Everything is happening as it should. It might not fully make sense now, but one day I promise you this will all make sense and you will use exactly what you've been through to help so many other people. And I would just say that we need you. We need people like you. We need people that think and feel big, you know, and deeply. Even if the world isn't set up for people like us, it's still valid. Like, your story is valid, your feelings are valid, and we need your story. We need your wisdom that you've, you know, managed to obtain from your experience. We need to hear your story and we need you to shine. So please just keep being yourself. Don't change yourself. Don't limit yourself. Don't isolate yourself. And just know that there's other people out there that are feeling like you are, and that you know, keep surrounding yourself with people that make space for the full and the real you, because we are out here and yeah, we need you. So just please keep being yourself and know that, yeah, everything is happening as it should.
Beautiful. Thank you.